He is the worst superstar I have ever seen in sport.
Stephen A. Smith has always been loud, but this time he's zeroing in on Kawhi Leonard.
That's the Kawhi Leonard I know. Doing nothing and getting paid for it.
Shocking reports link Kawhi to an alleged $28 million fraud plot, and Stephen A. isn't merely confronting him. He's unveiling new jaw-dropping angles. Let's dive in. Kawhi Leonard got paid $28 million for doing absolutely nothing. No press conferences, no brand campaigns, no social media, just silence. But now, that silence might be hiding something massive. A shocking report suggests Kawhi may have secretly blown the whistle on his own team, the Los Angeles Clippers. And what he revealed? It could cancel contracts, cost draft picks, and tear the franchise apart. The NBA has seen scandals before, but never like this. This one has billionaires, fake companies, ghost deals, and maybe the smartest salary cap scam in league history. Here's how it all came crashing down. The bombshell investigation. On September 3rd, 2025, investigative reporter Pablo Torre published a story that rocked the NBA. It wasn't just a leak. It was the result of 7 months of research, over 3,000 documents, and dozens of interviews. At the center was a company called Aspiration, a so-called environmental fintech startup that claimed to fight climate change. They had celebrity backing. Big names like Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert Downey Jr., Cindy Crawford, Orlando Bloom. They had massive funding, over $800 million raised, and they had ties to powerful politicians, Harvard alumni, and one of the richest men in sports, Steve Ballmer, the owner of the Clippers. But as Torre dug deeper, what looked like an ambitious climate company started to resemble something else entirely, a front. And Kawhi Leonard? He was being paid by them. A timeline full of red flags. Let's rewind the clock. In August of 2021, Kawhi Leonard signed a 4-year deal with the Clippers worth $176.3 million. It was considered slightly under market value for a player of his caliber. That gave the Clippers more cap flexibility. Just 1 month later, September 2021, Ballmer personally invested $50 million in Aspiration through an LLC called Polpack. That same month, the Clippers announced a massive sponsorship deal. Aspiration would become a founding partner for their new arena in a deal reportedly worth $300 million over 23 years. 2 months after that, Leonard's own LLC, KL2 Aspire, was registered in California. And by April of 2022, Kawhi had signed a 4-year endorsement deal with Aspiration, worth $28 million. That's not just a suspicious timeline, that's a blueprint. And it gets worse. The deal that let Kawhi do nothing. According to the report, the contract Leonard signed with Aspiration didn't require him to actually do anything. There were no ads, no photo shoots, no speaking engagements, just a few autograph sessions, a couple of social media posts, and a clause that allowed Kawhi to skip any of it if it conflicted with his beliefs. Even that minimal work, he never did it. No photos, no tweets, no campaigns, nothing. But here's the catch. The contract included a clause that said if Leonard retired or left the Clippers, the deal would be voided. Translation, he only got paid if he stayed with the team. That's not how sponsorships work. That's how loyalty bonuses work. It's disguised as marketing. And it all went through his LLC, KL2 Aspire, adding a layer of distance between Kawhi and the cash. But wait until you hear what happened to the company. The collapse of Aspiration. Aspiration was supposed to be a fintech company helping people save the planet. Instead, it became one of the most elaborate financial frauds in recent memory. In August of 2025, co-founder Joe Sandberg pleaded guilty to wire fraud totaling $248 million. Federal investigators found that up to 90% of Aspiration's claimed revenue came from fake letters of intent. The company declared bankruptcy in March. And in the middle of all of it was a $28 million payment to Kawhi Leonard's LLC. This wasn't a startup that failed. This was a company built on smoke and mirrors, trying to buy credibility through big names and NBA connections. And the connections went deeper than anyone expected. Kawhi's uncle and the ghost deals. This wasn't the first time Kawhi Leonard's inner circle had flirted with no-show deals. During his free agency in 2019, when the Raptors were trying to re-sign him, his uncle Dennis Robertson reportedly asked for things that had nothing to do with basketball. Sponsorship deals, ownership stakes, private perks. The Raptors said no. The Clippers, based on what we now know, they found a way to say yes. And the man behind KL2 Aspire? Dennis Robertson. A pattern is starting to form. One where Kawhi's camp finds outside money to supplement his NBA income, but the real benefit always loops back to the team. The NBA rulebook and the Timberwolves precedent. If what Torre uncovered is accurate, this goes far beyond shady deals. It's a direct violation of the NBA's collective bargaining agreement. The league has very clear rules. Teams cannot offer outside compensation to players beyond their contracts. That includes benefits from team sponsors or owners. Back in 2000, the Minnesota Timberwolves were caught offering Joe Smith under-the-table deals to re-sign cheaply. The punishment? 5 lost first-round draft picks. Now, with the Clippers, the stakes are even higher. The NBA has brought in the law firm Wachtell, Lipton, Rosen, and Katz, the same firm that investigated Donald Sterling and Robert Sarver. That's not routine. That's serious. And the outcome could reshape the league. Stephen A. Smith drops the hammer. When the story broke, ESPN's Stephen A. Smith did what he always does. He spoke the uncomfortable truth. But this time, he didn't just criticize Kawhi Leonard, he dissected him. Smith pointed to Kawhi's long history of sitting out games, his load management tactics, his lack of communication with media or fans. He called the $28 million deal the ultimate no-show payment, perfectly aligned with Leonard's approach to basketball: play when you want, get paid regardless. The numbers backed it up. Since joining the Clippers, Leonard had played only 266 out of 492 possible games. That's barely over 50%. And yet he remained one of the highest paid players in the league. Stephen A. framed it not as a surprise, but as the final puzzle piece. A career of silence, secrecy, and now, maybe a scheme. Steve Ballmer's defense gets shaky. Steve Ballmer didn't stay silent. When the scandal broke, he denied everything. He said aspiration tricked him, that he had no idea Kawhi was getting paid, that he lost money like everyone else. But here's the problem. Ballmer invested $50 million into aspiration. His team signed a $300 million sponsorship with the same company, and his star players LLC is listed in bankruptcy filings as a $7 million creditor. If he really didn't know, then he's the most clueless billionaire in sports. But more likely, he knew and assumed no one would ever connect the dots until now. The system that allowed this to happen. This scandal isn't just about one player or one team. It's about the system. A system where billionaire owners can create shell companies, fund them, then use those companies to pay players off the books. Aspiration bid over $1 billion for naming rights to the Clippers arena, nearly double what Intuit actually paid. Why would a failing company do that? Maybe because they weren't trying to make money. They were trying to keep Kawhi Leonard and the illusion of compliance. And it worked until the company collapsed. This story forces the NBA to confront a hard truth. Its rules were designed for a simpler time. Now, owners are smarter, deals are murkier, and the damage could be permanent if no one steps in. What comes next? The NBA's investigation is ongoing. The Clippers could face voiding of Leonard's contract, multi-million-dollar fines, and loss of multiple first-round draft picks. But the real consequences go deeper. Other teams are watching. Other agents are taking notes. If the NBA lets this slide, it opens the door to a whole new era of backdoor deals, fake sponsorships, and billionaire-funded workarounds. If they crack down, it could mean a hard reset on how endorsements and team affiliations are handled. And what about Kawhi? A two-time Finals MVP, a two-way superstar. But now, possibly the face of one of the most calculated pay-for-silence scandals in sports history. His legacy will never be the same. Not because he got paid, but because he said nothing. And maybe that silence was the point all along. This story isn't over. More documents could surface, more deals could be exposed, and more players might get pulled into the fallout. But one thing's already clear. The NBA will never look at third-party payments the same way again. Thank you for watching.